Radio, and a very special program today as we observe this week the 30th anniversary of the historic Million Man March. 30 years ago, 2 million black men stood on the National Mall and took a pledge to take care of ourselves, to do no more harm to one another, to protect our families and our children, and to be responsible black men with our backs straight. We thought it important that we commemorate this 30 years later, especially in the face of so many other challenges that we find our brothers facing, we find our families facing, we find our communities facing, and we find the African world facing. And so we're going to hear from some brethren today who are organizing in different cities. We thought it wise, not necessarily to try to bring 2 million people back to Washington, D.C. In this particular climate of ICE and military and so many other things. But we also know that many of our struggles are local. They're taking place on a local level. And we encouraged some of these brethren and others to organize at that local level to address the local concerns in their local communities in the spirit of the Million Man March. I want to lift up the names of both the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who was the leader and the keynote speaker at the march itself, and also Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., who was executive director of the Million Man March. And so I want you all to meet some dear brothers who are with us. We're going to talk a little bit about the march, where they were 30 years ago, what it meant to them, what it still means to them today. And then they're going to let us know what they're planning in their cities. We'll do a roll call of some of these cities. They're going to let us know what they're planning for this week in commemoration of the Million Man March. Let me just go through the list and introduce our brothers. First of all, my dear brother who actually was on stage with me, spoke at the march, and walked out on stage with me at dawn for the dawn prayer. We'll tell that story. That was a compelling moment. Brother Raheem Jenkins in Washington, D.C. Brother Raheem, assalamu alaikum.
Well, alaikum salam rahmatullah.
Glad to have you with us. Our dear brother from Newark, New Jersey, he don't play. Whole lot of meetings don't even start till he gets there. Folks start meeting, but the meeting really doesn't commence until he shows up. He's been organizing for years, and he's organizing in Newark. Brother Lawrence Ham. Brother Larry, how are you, brother?
I'm good, my brother. Reverend Mark, good to be with you.
Glad to have you with us. From the left coast, the very able facilitator for so much of the work we do in the movement, our brother Omawale Satterwhite, who's organizing in East Palo Alto, California. Brother Omawale, how are you, brother?
I'm doing good, and thank you for inviting me to join these other brothers in this conversation.
Yes. Glad you're here. And joining us from Ohio, so you represent about 3 cities in Ohio, I think. Brother Russell Neal, welcome, brother.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Yes, Akron, Canton, and Cleveland.
Akron, Canton, and Cleveland, getting it on for the Million Man March anniversary. Our brother from the state in which I reside, also a big part of the Coalition Black Trade Unionist Men's Committee, and they're doing very important work. They're really chipping in on this in a lot of these cities. Brother Alon Barrett, Brother Alon, welcome, man.
Peace to be with you, brothers. Great to be in here with you all.
It's a pleasure to have you, my brother. Thank you. And also joining us now from Baltimore. Baltimore has kept the lamp trimmed and burning for these 30 years, y'all. They've had a Million Man March commemoration. Not many other cities I know have done that. Maybe Detroit. Brother Edwin Avon from Baltimore. Brother Edwin, glad to have you, man. You're muted, brother. There you go.
Hey, good afternoon, my brothers. It's a pleasure to be here with you all.
It's a pleasure to have you. And last but not least, from the hometown of my teacher and mentor, who was there with us, who provided a lot of the vision. He did so much for us. And probably the greatest and the most significant political scientist in our people's history after W.B. Du Bois, Dr. Ronald Walters, here from his hometown, organizing in Wichita, is Corinthian Kelly. My brother, how are you?
I'm doing excellent, Reverend Mark. I am honored and humbled to be on this call with such distinguished gentlemen. So thank you so much for having us.
Yes. Glad to have you. Corinthian, I want to start with you. We were talking before we started the broadcast, you all, about where everybody was 30 years ago. Corinthian, tell us where you were 30
Yes.
years ago and how you participated in the march.
Yes, sir. So 30 years ago, October 16th in 1995, I was 9 years old, and I was in my hometown of Newport News, Virginia. I'm originally from Newport News, Virginia. My whole family is from the Tidewater area. And I remember the march because I went over to my grandmother's house. My grandmother was originally from Macon, Mississippi. And I went to her house and she had the Million Man March on C-SPAN. And I watched it. I couldn't quite comprehend everything that was going on, but what I was amazed and in awe of was the sea of beautiful black and brown faces as far as the eye could see. I remember that distinctly. And I also remember the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan up talking, in addition to Maya Angelou. I did recognize that name. So that's where I was. So I feel honored 30 years later to be involved in organizing efforts in present day.
And thank you, brother. We're honored to have you with us. Brother Raheem Jenkins, you were there, but you were also intimately involved in the organizing. Tell our audience a little bit, Brother Raheem, about some of the events that led to the Million Man March. It just didn't pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And I'm also honored to be on your show today as well, Mark. But for me, it started in 1993. It might have been April of 1993 for the first Peace and Justice Gang Summit that took place in Kansas City. And I happened to have a conversation with dearly beloved brother Dick Gregory, and he was asking me, did I know about the gang summit that was about to take place? And I had no idea. And so he said, well, you need to get in touch with Ben Chavis. And interestingly, I had not personally met Ben at this time. And so I said, I don't really know Ben. So Dick took it upon himself, who was the mayor of D.C. at that time, Mayor Sharon Pratt Kelly. He went to Dick. Dick went to the mayor and said, you need to send these brothers to Kansas for this gang summit so they can begin to talk about the violence. I'm going to fast forward the story. So I wound up having a phone conversation with Ben. He was excited about DC being represented. And so we met in Kansas. And from Kansas, we went from Kansas, I think Cleveland, Chicago, the Twin Cities in Minnesota, and we started moving around. And it just so happened at the time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, Ben was the executive director of the NAACP, and the funding for the march was coming from there. So when Ben left, that kind of slowed the funding down, and everybody was left to do it on their own. Conversations with that leadership, this was Carl Upchurch, Gator Bradley out of Chicago, Sharif Willis out of the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and the brothers from the West Coast. We had agreed that eventually we would come to Washington, D.C., where there was no organized street gangs. And this is history, because that was a safe space, and we need to be able to know this and share that eventually we would convene in D.C. because there were no organized national street gangs in D.C., and that we would come here. So when Ben was no longer with the NAACP, it stopped our meeting locally, but the Minister Farrakhan, started the national all men's gatherings, if you can remember that, going around the country. So the spirit of us all coming together and coming to DC, that seed had already been planted. And so then we went from there, began to plan the Million Man March, to which myself, you, Brother Mark, and Ben Chavis, we then opened the national headquarters for the Million Man March here in Washington, D.C., and if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Phi Beta Sigma's corporate office for DC. And that was the office. And we literally opened that office and began to do what we're doing right now today, the national organizing without internet and social media and that kind of thing, to get the word around that we were bringing 1 million plus Black men to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, we didn't have all this technology back then as we had, and we got 2 million men there.
Exactly.
Even without that, just like Lawrence Ham, Marcus Garvey had less technology than that, and he had 6 million members.
That's right. Worldwide.
That's right. That's right. Lawrence, tell us about your experience with the Million Man March 30 years ago. And coming from Newark, let me just say, y'all, this would not have, and Brother Raheem knows as well, that the East Coast showed out
Yes.
on the Million Man March. And you know, our most significant organizer, our best organizer for the whole East Coast was Rudolph Giuliani. Because every morning at his New York mayoral press conference, he would tell people, don't go to the Million Man March.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, keep it up, dude. Because whatever he told people not to go to, they were going to go to. And whatever he told people to go to, they would not go. So he helped us out a lot, Lawrence.
Yes. Well, like Brother Raheem, I think the roots go back for us in Newark. One of the stops on the Stop the Killing tour was the Jacob Javits Center. There was a rally there in 1993, and many of us came there. And I think that was really the beginning, because I began to work more closely with the Nation of Islam in Newark. I don't know if you knew this, Mark, but I used to work for Ben Chavis. I was with him when he was the executive director, Commission for Racial Justice, United Church of Christ. But I had since moved on, and now I was in Newark working with my group, People's Organization for Progress. But, you know, there were a series of rallies that led up to the call to the Million Man March. And I got a call from Minister Qadir Muhammad, who you know, who was then minister of Mosque 25 in Newark, New Jersey. He reached out to me in the summer of 1994, and he asked me if I would work with him to organize New Jersey to go to the Million Man March. To make a long story short, we had a meeting at a Black-owned restaurant owned by a brother named Reuben Johnson. His name of his restaurant was Reuben's on Court Street in Newark, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought a lot of the community leaders there and women. From the beginning, I have to say this as a matter of fact, from the beginning in the New Jersey effort, women were involved. And when we met, I believe it might have been August of 1994. When we met at Reuben's, we organized what was called the New Jersey Million Man March Coalition. And simultaneously in that meeting, we organized the Women in Support of the Million Man March, which was headed up by Sister Frederica Bay, and Brother Qadir and myself headed up the New Jersey Coalition effort. Under the banner of the New Jersey Million Man March Coalition, we had a bus roster of 250 registered buses that were on our roster out of New Jersey. Now that's on our roster. There were many other brothers that organized in their buses independently, but I'm talking about, I could pick up a roster and show you 250 buses coming out of Jersey. Many other men went down on the train. Many drove down, some flew down, and then some went to Philadelphia, and some brothers marched from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C. All in all, it was reported in the papers that about 75,000 men came out of New Jersey to go to the Million Man March. And I have to say, it was magnificent. I don't know if you want me to stop there, you know, just introductory, but there were other things, you know, I could talk about.
Well, no, I'll get to that. Hold that thought.
Okay.
Omar Wally, 30 years ago, brother, tell us about your experience.
So there was an organizing group in the Bay Area called the Pan-African Secretariat. The host or anchor organization was led by Oba Tashaka. It's called Pan-African People's Organization. And we were in Nairobi or East Palo Alto. We called it Nairobi at the time. And there was also a link in Oakland. So San Francisco, East Palo Alto, and Oakland, whatever it was, whether it was Kwanzaa, whether it was African Liberation Day or Million Man March, we had this coalition collaborative alliance of the three cities where we did joint organizing around issues of common interest. And so that's what happened with the Million Man March. We didn't organize buses or planes or modes of transportation, and everybody kind of like went individually, I think, from what had happened in the Bay Area. But in terms of my own personal experience, I took my 14-year-old daughter and my 11-year-old son with me. And so I was pondering this question of, are females welcome? I mean, because it wasn't clear whether or not women were welcome at the march. And I did my own soul searching, and I said, my daughter has to go to the Million Man March so that she can have this historic experience and live with it forever. And so, yeah, that's what happened. And when I look back on the Million Man March, there may be 3 or 4 really profound things that happened to me, not in order of priority, but my first trip to South Africa, just before Mandela got released and being able to travel all over the country. Dealing with the, East Palo Alto, Nairobi was a people's movement. We became a city and we organized ourselves and became a municipality. We were unincorporated and dominated at the county level. And then the trip to the Million Man March is, I won't tell you the other 2 or 3, but the trip to the Million Man March is right at the top of the list. It was a profound experience, being and walking around among 1 million men who were in love with each other, who were practicing love in the moment. No, I didn't hear an argument. I didn't hear on the block, if somebody stepped on somebody's toe, there was going to be a war. So somebody was going to hit somebody. But there were no arguments, no confrontations, no negativity, all positive love, Black love for Black men and Black people.
Yeah, it was a beautiful day. Not a negative thing happened. Brother
Not
Russell
a negative
Neal,
thing.
Brother Russell Neal from the Ohio area, talk to us about your experience 30 years ago and what it meant to you.
Well, I'll tell you, 30 years ago, the preparation, the experience of, I just came through a rights program. And so several groups in our area came together to start organizing. A group called the Kabbalah Shiro, a rites of passage group, a Pan-African Studies Collaborative, and just some grassroots organizations, and then just some of the older brothers from the street. I remember the intense conversations that were taking place as we were planning the march, talking about the issues in our community. And the ride, I can't think of it, was that Breezeway or whatnot? That experience coming to where all those buses came in. I mean, it had to be thousands of buses, it seemed like. And brothers were like on a mission, not buying a thing, but running up that water bill, going to the restaurant. And then when we rode into DC, man, it was the most spiritual event I've ever been a part of. That's all I can say, the most spiritual event I've ever been a part of. But then the fire that brothers felt when they came back and got engaged, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to touch on that. My only regret is that our traditional institutions in our community, mainly the church, wasn't in a position to harness that energy.
There was even, to be honest, there was some resistance in some quarters. That was a shame, and there was concern because the minister in the nation was a Muslim organization, but the 2 million, the majority of the people out there were not Muslim. They were Christian.
Mhm.
Brother Alon. Now I asked Corinthian, Alon, how old were you 30 years ago? Were you even born yet?
I was 10 years old. So
Okay,
I was
you were
born
10.
in
Okay, go
85.
ahead.
So I'm enjoying listening to these stories. But uh, I did attend though the Million Family March in 2000 with some older
Mhm.
brothers, and they made it here in Southeast Queens. They made it their business to make sure that young people accompanied them, and I was blown away. And I've been advocating for Black boys and men ever since.
Yeah, no question, and we're thankful for that. And Brother Edwin, um,
Yes, sir.
you all in Baltimore, y'all never. A lot of us just, we got into other things. We never forgot, but y'all never stopped.
Yeah,
Like
we,
y'all are still the same vibe, you know, as you were 30 years ago.
yeah. Well, we're fortunate enough to have a couple of catalysts here. People that are like glue to keep us together. Definitely, I give all the shout out to my sister Eartha Harris, who has definitely been the glue and the fire for a bunch of the brothers here. But because of that prodding along, we have stayed together. She and I served on the local organizing committee of the Million Man March 30 years ago here in Baltimore. When we were meeting, we were being led by brother Reverend John L. Wright here in Baltimore. But you had brothers from the mosque, brothers from churches, brothers from fraternities, everybody. We were meeting on a regular basis to put it together because our task was to get 250,000 men from Baltimore, since we were so close. If we could get 250,000 brothers from Baltimore down there, it would make a huge difference. And so we were all out, getting to work in our different organizations and getting everybody fired up. But I remember that time very vividly. I remember going down there just thinking that we were going to get the master plan. We were going to come back with this master plan in writing, and each city we're going to do the same exact thing to take over our community. It was the master plan. I was looking for the Million Man Millionaire game plan. But I was inspired to go on and build businesses and build schools, and so those things were definitely positive things that came out of the Million Man March for me.
Hey, just real quick, you built a school.
Yes, sir. I
You
have a
came to school.
school in Baltimore. It's called Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. So
That's
we
right.
have
Wow.
320 young
Wow.
brothers that we are raising up. We have several clubs. We opened in 2015, 20 years after the Million Man March. So we're
Right.
celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And God has been good, man. We got 95% of our boys are graduating from high school in 4 years, and 50% of them are in college right now. And that's above the average, in Baltimore of 68% of brothers graduating from high school on time, and about 20% going to college. And so we're trying to do this and replicate it and continue to build the future million men, million men millionaires. That's what I want them to be.
All right. Did we get 250,000 out of Baltimore? Seemed like we did.
Yeah, I mean, that was the numbers that we got as an estimate when we came back. And as a matter of fact, we came back and our mayor was so enthusiastic that we put on an event called the Men of the March. And I was one of the organizers of the Men of the March conference. And we had about 3,000 brothers that came together in a conference afterwards.
And
Wow.
and when
Amazing.
I was on the air then for Kathy Hughes, we were on WL in DC and WLB in Baltimore. So every
Mhm.
day when Dr. Chavis and I and Brother Raheem were on the radio and Bernie McCain, but we were pushing it, and that Baltimore audience was right in that wheelhouse. Y'all were right there taking it all in. Talking
Absolutely.
to some brother organizers folks about the Million Man March, MIP on 89.3. So, Corinthian, uh, why do we, from what you learned over the years, why is it necessary for us to do this again? Have we fallen off? Do we have some new challenges? What are some of the reasons from your point of view why we got to do this again?
Yeah, yes, sir. I appreciate the question, Reverend Mark. I would submit that awareness leads to activation. So I wouldn't say it's not a fall off. It's an opportunity to reconnect the younger generation. So the folks that weren't born in 1995 to understand the history, understand the strength from unity, understand the pride through perseverance, and understand that what the Million Man March was historic. That's the largest gathering in U.S. history. Well, our young folks have to know that our people organized that, and there was no incidents that day. So that counters the narrative that when we get together, there's static or there's beef or something goes down. Well, you all demonstrated that 30 years ago, before internet, Twitter, without social media to spread the word, just through grassroots organizing, loving on each other. So our young people have to know that, because in my opinion, you take pride from that. I'll land my plane here, Reverend Mark. I had a chance to listen to your recent interview with Dr. Karenga, and it was so good. I listened to it 2 times, as he shared the importance of speaking truth, doing justice, valuing and taking care of the poor and vulnerable, honoring our elders and our ancestors, cherishing and challenging our children, and praising and promoting good. That's a through line that from young to old, we know and we should stand on. So.
In fact, folks, we're going to be adding that interview and Dr. Karenga. Dr. Karenga wrote the original mission statement 30 years ago, and he's written a new mission statement. All of that will be available at millionmanmarch2025.com. If it's not already up there, check millionmanmarch2025.com, as well as a schedule of what's happening in all the cities. Brother Raheem, how about you? Why is this important at this time? The work that you all did 30 years ago in terms of the gang summits and the peace summits, where does that stand now? And why is it important that we not only have this march, but we continue those kinds of conversations?
Well, if I may, Mark, I think it is extremely important that I do take a minute to just point out the fact of the role that Dr. Ben Chavis and yourself played in that Million Man March. I mean, because 30 years ago, you was just off the front porch, and you also happened to have a radio station. Had it not been for that relationship with Kathy Hughes and you every day pumping the Million Man March, a lot of work or the fruition of what we saw would not have taken place. And I also don't think enough credit actually is given to Dr. Benjamin Chavis in terms of the very vital role that he played. And you mentioned the East Coast, the faith-based community, the leadership of the faith-based community. They were very reluctant about coming on board because of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. I had an opportunity to watch Ben Chavis go in rooms with pastors that would not even meet with Minister Farrakhan, and not only talk them into meeting with him, but after the meetings were over, then they too turned their followers and their flock and their churches and had them involved. And so I cannot say enough about the sacrifices and the contribution that Ben Chavis made to the Million Man March. The urgency is this, Mark, because out of the result of all of us going around doing those peace and justice gang summits, and you got to understand that the leadership of these organizations were present at this meeting. They sanctioned it. They stamped it. They said it was okay for their following to come. I was honored that they also came to the march, and we were afforded the opportunity, the leadership and myself, to speak at the march. What is so relevant now that it's the same battle. We just have to get back on the battlefield and readdress this new generation that we're seeing in our communities that have no sense of self, don't have the value of that we accomplished on the Million Man March or the way it's described. Because Mark, there's a moment that you and I share, and you spoke about it earlier, that right at the beginning of the march, just when daybreak was being set, as we walked out on the stage, the call to prayer, which is the Adhan, was said over those monument grounds, where on those very grounds, our ancestors were once traded and slaved, traded and sold right there on that march. And I've been asked, especially by my grandkids, what did that look like? What did that feel like? And I can just say that I've already had an opportunity to look into heaven. And that's what it looked like as you and I stood there. And as it got daybreak, it got lighter and lighter. And as far as the eye could see, we could see nothing but Black men standing in the darkness in daybreak, quiet. It wasn't, I mean, it was, you would, if you had passed there, you would have known that many men were there, rank and file. And so I've had an opportunity to see what heaven looks like on that morning. And so with us coming back locally, identifying those things that we need to do, and I'll just stop here. Somebody already mentioned it. The faith-based communities, the mosques, the churches, we have to begin to reclaim the communities that these places are in and provide services to our people. And we have to bring the ministries back to the street under atonement and reconciliation.
No question about it. And
Well
Brother
said.
Raheem, yeah, very well said. Brother Raheem, we Bill Clinton left town. Newt Gingrich and Congress left town. They say, y'all got it. So y'all got the whole capital. Just we out. They handed it over. And we were in a holding area where the president is held. The president-elect is held before the president comes out to be sworn in.
Yes.
And we walked out of the door that every president walks out of on the west front of the Capitol to take that oath of office, the most powerful door in the world, to the Adhan call, to prayer, and to a sea of 2 million men. Larry Ham, why would you say this is an important moment to do this? Not just for commemoration's sake, but because of what some of our people are facing. And feel free to share with us, what are some of the things that we're facing in Newark?
Well, first of all, I want to say Brother Raheem spoke very well just now. It really touched me. We're faced with profound crisis. And not that there has ever been an era when we didn't have crisis, but I think everybody can agree right now that we're faced with an even deeper crisis. And in a time like this, we have to reach back to the wellspring of our spiritual strength. And, it's important that people understand. And, I'm just a regular guy. I'm not a pastor, or an imam, a religious leader of any kind. But I recognize the deep spiritual character that's why it was such a transforming event for people. People want to say, well, what did it accomplish? What it accomplished is that it changed men's hearts and changed their minds and reoriented them. And the first step toward any revolution is the transformation of the mind. But the spiritual strength that we need to face the difficult days ahead, we draw that from those experiences that we had in our past. And certainly the Million Man March, all the brothers here on this program that were there know what it was like when you turned around and you looked back and all the way to the horizon. There was no end. It was all the way to the horizon were our brothers, And I'm going to tell you something. One of my deep regrets. First of all, Minister Farrakhan certainly should get the credit that he deserves. And one of the reasons, because I was just having this discussion with someone the other day. They were talking about how young people don't know anything about the Million Man March. Well, we have a responsibility to make sure that they know. That's the oppressor is not going to teach our children about the Million Man March. He's not going to do it. That's going to be on us. But Minister Farrakhan certainly deserves the credit. He should get the credit that he deserves. One of the things that hurt me was, many of our buses were on contract, right? And legally, these drivers are not supposed to be on the road for more than 12 hours at a time. So the earlier you came in, the earlier you had to leave. And, it just speaks to the humble character of Minister Farrakhan. He could have been the first speaker if he wanted to. In fact, he didn't even have to say it. The brothers would have made him. But he let all the other folks go before him. And by time he came to the podium, a lot of people all over the country were moving back to their buses, because the buses were parked quite a ways and we had to take the train back and so on and so forth. And I wish that we all could have been. We actually heard Minister Farrakhan on our bus. The bus hadn't left yet, but we were all on the bus and we heard him. The bus driver turned up the radio. I guess it was your station, Mark. I mean, probably the only one that was broadcasting the whole thing, and we could actually sit in the bus before we pulled off and we heard Minister Farrakhan's entire speech. But I just wish we all could have been there, been present when he spoke. But other than that, it gave us a lot of energy, and I guess all of us will get a chance to talk about what we did after we got back.
No, that's beautiful. Omawale, why would you say this is an important moment to reconvene, to re-examine? And feel free to talk about what's going on in Nairobi.
So, my primary work now is creating a community archive. During the Nairobi movement, which was about 61, 62 to 85, we were a majority Black community. We're about 10% of the population now. And so my work is centrally focused on creating a community archive. And the motto or theme of the community archive is our history is our power. So it's important, I think, for us to commemorate on a regular basis, and certainly at the 30th year, the Million Man March, because understanding and knowing that story empowers us to be a greater and a more productive and a more informed people as we work for freedom and justice. The other thing I want to say, though, is I have a different take on the march that I've argued a little differently over the years. Most the biggest criticism I ever heard, and it was also stated here today, is that there was no strategically pre-planned, coordinated action after the march that took place across the country. That's true. But I don't see that as a failure. What in fact happened is the 2 million people that were there, the 2 million men that were there, they went back home and worked differently, worked with a different spirit, with a different focus, with a different energy, with a different sense of connectedness. That part of the story has never been documented. But I think that when I see the post-march, when I think about post-march, I don't think about the absence of a national strategic coordinated strategy. I actually flip the script and I see 2 million people on boots on the ground, working differently, more in a more connected, coordinated, spiritually informed and grounded way as Black men working for justice.
And working, even if working better and more closely and more in a more disciplined fashion when it came to our families and our communities.
Yes.
That was very important. I'm gonna be honest with you, the folk who say, well, there wasn't no plan, nothing happened. Most of the people, I'm gonna be real with y'all. Most of the people we've heard that from over the years, Brother Raheem, have been folks, and particularly Negroes, exclusively in electoral politics. Okay, because some of us think that's the only thing we're supposed to be doing anyway, which is a whole nother conversation, Larry. But the people say, But the fact of the matter is, we registered so many million men, even though Bill Clinton knocked it. The next year, he got reelected because of that. So people can't even say that was a total loss. We ended up with more black children in adopted black homes. That was
Right.
a call that was made. So when people say that, I don't know what they wanted. When I hear some folks say that, I say, "Oh, you just mad because nobody elected you president or mayor, whatever it is you was running for at the time." But that wasn't what it was for. This was a spiritual transformation, and that was
Right.
very, 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 very
Right.
important. Russell, talk to us about why this is meaningful to do this again for the brothers in Ohio. You're muted, brother. Let me unmute you.
There you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Was many of the brothers have shared, it's important that we tell our history. I mean, 30 years ago, there's generations that have never heard this story, unfortunately. And it's not the public education system's responsibility to tell our story, it's ours. And so just telling how rich that moment was and how spiritual that moment was is important. But it's even more so important now because we spoke about how the sense of brotherly love was shared. I don't know about in you brothers' communities. I mean, we know what's happening outside with the politics and the Project 2025 and all of that. But as my one brother said, when have we ever not been on this continent when we haven't been under attack? What concerns me more so than ever is the violence that's taking place in my community amongst those under the age of 20, 16. And I truly believe that if my generation, those before and those right after, told the richness of the Million Man March and the rest of our history, that it would deter a lot of that self-hate. And so it's critical that we recapture the essence of that moment, rededicate ourselves to the pledge and the 8 steps of atonement, and save our community.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Alon, young brother here, what can the Million Man March do for you and your generation going forward? You and Corinthian are bringing up the flank. You got our 6 going forward. What is it that this experience and what we are commemorating and renewing, what can it do going forward for a lot of these young brothers you're with? Because we're in a crisis, and it's your generation, it's you all's generation, really all of us. We were taking the pledge to atone and reconcile and to take responsibility. Now, social media, which didn't exist then, is disinforming brothers to buy into this manosphere. I'm the victim. I'm the white man of the victim, and so black men assimilate into that. That wasn't the spirit. We didn't come to say we were victimized, other than being people descendants of the enslaved. But we didn't think our women were victimizing us or our children. We didn't see our own families as our enemies. But that's what's happening now, Alon. How do you feel about that, and what is it that we can do in this moment to turn that around?
And that's a real loaded question. That's a high responsibility. I think it's above my pay grade, but I'll attempt to.
You got it.
What I will say though, before I even begin, I want to lift up a couple of names: William Bill Lucy, Nelson Edwards, Charles Hayes, Cleveland Robinson, and William Simmons. These brothers got together in 1972 to put together the Coalition of Black Trade Unionists. And I just want to make sure we lift up the name of Bill Lucy, who I got a chance to be in partnership with before his passing. I think sometimes before I even get into we forget how influential Black labor was to the civil rights movement. Bill Lucy actually, beyond the sanitation strike that happened, he was arm in arm with Martin Luther King. And a lot of times I hear folks talk about, what's the focus for our people? And you hear the minister talk about it, jobs and justice. We've been talking about the same things, jobs and justice. Black labor has a high influence in the jobs part of this. There's a lot of brothers who are my age, some folks who are college educated like myself, who are struggling to find opportunities. What is it behind that? You know? But I think one thing that I learned when I attended the march in 2000 was Tracy Mears, a sociologist, talks about this. She's coined this term called collective efficacy, right? And I really got the sense, I've never been in a place where I saw senior Black men, adult Black men, and young Black men in one place fellowshipping together. And one of the reasons, Mark, and you've seen some of the stuff we do, you know, one of the things that I did as the men's chair for the Coalition of Black Trade Unions, I said, we got to get brothers in a room together exclusively. And we put together something called Bro Halls, not town halls, but Bro Halls that are specifically geared towards Black men. And we've been doing that over the country. Mark, we did it in Orlando at our international convention. And we had close to 200 brothers in a room for up to 4 hours. And we were just discussing it. We got it on tape. We got to release it. But that's what I think needs to happen. Simple. We need to get our brothers into a room to discuss what we're going to do. As Brother Raheem was saying, and it's very poignant and targeted what he said, we got to go back into our communities, right? Identify the different facets, the different folks, the churches. We all got to come together and rebuild our community. I'm not going to wait on other folks to give us a handout. That's just something that I got from the march. We can do for selves.
And last, Brother Edwin, and then folks, we're going to hear all the activities that are coming up this week. And Brother Edwin, you kind of alluded to it. You're trying to build millionaires.
Absolutely.
Now I know this is the school. What grade is the school? What grade does it go to?
The school goes from 4th grade to 8th grade right now, but we're working on 2 different plans. One of adding a workforce development division to our school, which would deal with men at an older age, 18 and above.
See, you read my mind. See, because we ain't nobody on here no millionaire except Larry, and the rest of us want an opportunity. Because even though it's 4th to 8th grade, can we come back to school and learn how to be a millionaire? Is it too late?
Yeah, but you know, it's easy.
I'm not too. You know, I'm humble enough to sit with some 8-year-olds. If you got a millionaire plan for us to have, Doctor.
Well, you look, I would say it's you know, like they say, it's easier to build strong children than to fix broken men, right?
That's right.
But yeah, we get to them at a young age, and so we're working on opening up a preschool because we're 4th to 8th now. We're looking at opening up a preschool so we can get the boys at 2 years old, 3 years old, and get them to start reading at that age, and then adding on the workforce development piece. But why is this important at this time? It's obvious, man. Right now, it's like it's a war. There's always been a war on us, but I think their war is being very explicit. They're coming for Black people. They want to erase our history. They want to wipe out our jobs. You know, it's an intense time in this country. I often think that, you know, we do need to turn up the political part of this whole thing. I believe that we're a political power. To be honest with you, I'd love to have one the next Juneteenth would be real Independence Day and have Black people lead the Democratic Party and register independent like that. And let us all get collectively across the country independent, and then we can move them any election. Whether it's to a Republican side, Democratic side, but I think we need to unite. And so, though I agree that, you know, there was a lot of wonderful things that came out of the march, I am one of those guys like, man, we missed an opportunity to give everybody the game plan so that we be doing the same exact thing across the country in a united fashion. So I'd love to see us come up with that thing that we could do collectively across the country in a united fashion, whether we're opening up more schools for Black boys, whether we're coming together, build a business that we could replicate in every city, or whether it's to get together politically and unite our votes. I think this is an opportunity for us to do those things.
Reverend Mark, does that brother have our phone tapped?
No, trust me, brother.
He and I just had a conversation as a result of the Million Man March. We started the first African-centered political party in America, the Mosier Party. Both of us ran in the Washington, D.C. for city council for the Emoji Party. So that's a conversation.
And we had a chapter in Maryland, Lisa Mitchell.
See, listen, I'm deeply into this stuff. My Instagram handle is Black Votes Matter PAC. So it's all about, we need to build our own political action committee.
So that's the next meeting that we have. That's the next conversation.
The thing that I said why I think we should go independent is because it doesn't scare as many Black people, right? They can say, I can be independent, but Black, you know how we are. Like, I think the Emoji Party would be perfect. But everybody be like, I ain't going for that. But if you say switch over to be independent and let all Black people, and then those good white people who want to follow us, they can come on and get independent with us. But if we can all just move over and become independent, we'd be a super block. And I think we can really have deep change in this country. But you know, I got the plan for that one too. So,
Mark, can I just say something real quick? I just want to add something that we're working on in New York, and the legislation. I work in government affairs. The legislation piece is extremely important. The work that Baltimore and some other cities like Philly have done around Black men, having an Office of Black Male Engagement. We have something called a Black Male Excellence Bill and a package of bills that are not just transactional in nature, but really identify a line item in the budget to support Black men. Because there's a lot of folks who are out here who say, yeah, we support Black men. They utilize us to push certain things, but then when it comes down to us, we don't get access to it. But I'm all with that. I would love to have a off-board conversation about that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Gentlemen, in the moments remaining, we want to hear about what your plans are in your respective cities. So I'm going to call on each of you. We'll do a quick roll call. Let us know, give us a glimpse of what you're planning and how people can find out more about what you're doing. And then, folks, we're going to put all of these events up at millionmanmarch2025.com. They should already be there, millionmanmarch2025.com throughout the whole week. But we want to hear what you're doing. And we're on WPFW locally in Washington, even though we're also national. So we'll begin with DC and Brother Raheem Jenkins.
Well,
Brother Raheem.
I head the National Center for Juvenile Justice Reform. And so what we're doing is hosting at a Black-owned restaurant in Southeast DC on October the 17th. That morning, we're having a leadership breakfast, and we're convening all of the leaderships of faith-based community to come together to begin to have this kind of a conversation that we can challenge those places of worship to claim their communities and take the ministry to the street. And then that afternoon at 1 o'clock at the Sycamore and Oaks, it's a government facility that's an incubator for new businesses. We're going to have Juma service, congregational prayer on Friday at 1 o'clock. And after the Juma prayer, we will have a conference to be able to come with a working agenda that we can share around the city of Washington, D.C., that we begin to help in the areas of housing, health, employment, and education. And so that's what the day after, that's what it looks like for us on October the 17th.
And where can people find out more, Brother Raheem? You have your own website?
Yes, ncjjara.org.
ncjjr.org, folks.
Yes.
All right. Lawrence Ham, tell us about Newark and how people can find out more.
In Newark, New Jersey, on October 16th, we will be having the 30th anniversary commemoration of the Million Man March. It's going to take place 6 p.m. Thursday, October 16th at St. James AME Church. That's 588 Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Newark. We're going to have a panel discussion on the Million Man March, a keynote presentation, and an audience discussion about the Million Man March. The panel discussion will consist of Reverend Ronald Slaughter, who's the pastor of St. James, Sister Frederica Bay from Women in Support of Million Man March, student minister Abdul Haq from Mosque number 25 in Newark, and myself on the panel discussion. The keynote presentation will be given by Mayor Ras Baraka, mayor of the city of Newark, and then we will have an open Q&A and reflections from the audience in that program. So That's our program in Newark. People need more information. They can call 973-801-0001, People's Organization for Progress. And also, there's an article, Black Star News did an article on our upcoming event. So if you go to Black Star News, just Google Million Man March. It'll pop right up.
Thank you. Omawale Salaway, let us know what you're doing in East Palo Alto.
We're having a gathering, a commemoration gathering on October 16th, and it will precede the national gathering that we will all join once the time and date is set for that. At our own gathering, we will begin with some brief history of the Million Man March, some reflections about the experience as we've done here today, and through individual storytelling and testimony. And then lastly, because the theme is looking back, looking forward, invite people to what are our revelations about, what the march means to us and what it commands us to do as we go forward. We have a group that meets on a regular basis, and the Million Man March this experience just now becomes a way to deepen our sense of understanding of our history, bring about some connectedness of this group that meets on an ongoing basis, addressing Black issues in our community, and then lay the foundation for others to join the work that we're doing, and also inspire us to move collectively going forward. So it'll be a single event. It'll precede the national event, and then we'll invite and encourage people to join the national event on an individual basis on the 16th, once that schedule is set. So we're just really highly energized about the opportunity to be a part of a national initiative. Thank you, Barbara, Reverend Mark.
Thank you, man. Thank you for pulling that together out in East Palo Alto. Is there a way for people to contact who want to join your event?
I don't have the Zoom link now, but omosat@aol.com.
All right,
omosat@aol.com.
And once you get the Zoom link, we'll put it up on the national website. Russell Neal Jr., tell us what's all planned for this week in the state of Ohio.
Sure, for Canton, Akron, and Cleveland. All three cities are using this as a catalyst for greater collaboration moving forward, keeping the spirit of the march as a center point and focusing on the pledge and the 8 Steps of Atonement. So for those in Canton, they can reach out to the President Thomas West. For those in Cleveland, they can reach out to Jerry Prim, who runs the Solution and is out at Tech Hive Center. But in Akron, on the 16th, the local chapter of the 100 Black Men is hosting a breakfast at one of the schools, one of the elementary schools in the morning at 8 o'clock. And then in the evening from 5:30 to 7:30, the minister from the local mosque, Minister Stephen Muhammad, and pastor from Prince of Peace Baptist Church, Pastor Jack Streeter, are hosting an event where we're inviting men from across the city, from all organizations to come for a time of reflection and rededication as we take time to reflect on what happened that day, but then spend most of the time going over the pledge and the 8 Steps of Atonement as we recommit to working together moving forward.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Russell. Brother Alon, New York.
Yes, sir. For New York, the greatest city in the country. Just wanted to put that out there. No offense.
Even though we got eliminated from the doggone playoffs, and I'm still traumatized behind that. So go ahead.
We'll survive. So on October 15th, we're putting together the first ever virtual Bro Hall. Join us for a powerful dialogue as we reflect on the 30th anniversary of the Million Man March. To examine the current realities of what we're going through. And then also that same week, we are doing a 30 years later, marching forward, the Brothers of New York City, from Legacy to Liberation, join us. And we're going to be marching the No Kings rally, but we're getting brothers from all of the labor unions to march with us. That's happening on Saturday, October 18th. You can find more information at newyorkcbtu.org. That's newyorkcbtu.org, and when we'll have updates. We want to shake the city up.
We've been saying too, y'all, this no kings, N-O kings in response to no good Donald Trump. But what we've been saying, no kings, N-O kings. But when it comes to us, K-N-O-W kings, because we the kings. No kings, no kings. So, because we are kings, all right? Amen? Brother,
Amen.
brother Ed,
Amen.
Baltimore, Lord have mercy. Baltimore's been keeping it alive. Go ahead, Baltimore. What's happening this week?
Yes, sir. Well, we have a variety of things that are happening over 3 days. On the actual day of the celebration, October 16th, we will have our annual sunrise prayer. That'll be taking place at 6 a.m. in Druid Hill Park, which is in the center of the city. Brothers and sisters will gather there at Druid Park Lake Drive and Swan Drive at 6 a.m. After that, we're going to have a reflection breakfast at 8 a.m. And that's going to be at the Garage, and that's 6 East Lafayette Avenue in Baltimore. So that will be a big breakfast gathering of Black men after the sunrise prayer. Then that evening at 7 p.m., there will be an all men's town hall that we will have at 7 p.m. at the Garage again. It's a town hall to talk about the state of Black men in Baltimore and beyond and what we can do together. Then the following day on the 17th, I'm sorry. Yep. And the following day on the 17th at Coppin State University, there will be the performance or something called Shortcuts, and it's a love letter to the Million Man March. So it's kind of like a TED Talk event that will be happening of storytelling. It happens on that evening, 6:30 p.m. on Friday the 17th at Coppin State University at the James Weldon Johnson Auditorium, and that is free. So come on out and join us then. And then on Saturday, October 18th at Morgan State University, we'll be having Brothers to Brotherhood town hall meeting. That starts at 10 a.m. From 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., we'll be having students from the campus as well as men. It's been coordinated by fraternities, the Masons, and the men at Morgan, I should say the students at Morgan State University. So it's multi-generational from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Morgan State University at the Student Center.
And where can people find out more again?
They can call us at 443-655-7198. Once again, 443-655-7198 to find out about all of Baltimore's activities.
And last but not least, our brother Corinthian Kelly. Tell us what's in Wichita.
Yes, sir. So, Reverend Mark, we kicked off our full week of activities yesterday with our Recommitment to Purpose rally and day of service. We started with books and breakfast, and we keenly wanted to engage our young people. We had young people as young as 5 there to up to 17. We fed close to 50 families. And I want to make one note. We asked our young people the question, if you brought together 1 million young people to do good work in community, what would you do? And we asked young people to video record their responses, and we got some great results. After that rally, our Recommitment to Purpose, we did community cleanup. So we had our young youth out there cutting grass, trimming hedges, helping elderly folks take out trash all yesterday. So we're excited about that. Today we had our day of worship. So we asked folks independently to set aside time to pray, meditate, and post their reflections on our Facebook page. Tomorrow, October 13th, we are having our mentoring intergenerational day. We are partnering with a local nonprofit called Heroes Academy, where we're going to mentor the young people. And also, we're going to ask them that same prompt. If you brought together your peers to do good work in community, what would you do? We'll record their responses. On Tuesday, October the 14th, we are having our Thoughtful Mental Health Day. That's an independent self-care self-check-in day. Check on your brother and post your responses there. On Wednesday, October the 15th, we're having our Support Black-Owned Day. So we're encouraging folks to make purchases at Black-owned businesses. We are partnering with Left on Red Bookstore, the only Black-owned bookstore in the state of Kansas that happens to be owned by my wife, Dr. Latasha Ely Kelly. She's giving 30% off items that day, and we're encouraging folks to shop Black-owned. On Thursday, the anniversary, the 16th, is our Legacy Day, where we are encouraging all local Black men and well-meaning community members to come for a celebratory clap-in at a local school, because we want to see our young people knowing that their elders have their back. And on that night, we have a Men's Power Summit that will go from October the 16th through the 18th. So we're so excited, and Wichita is ready to hit the ground running.
Y'all busy. Where can people find out more? How can you reach out?
Yes, sir. So we have a Facebook page called the Recommitment to Purpose page in Wichita, but also folks can call if they have questions. My number, area code 757-969-3534. Again, that's area code 757-969-3534.
MillionManMarch2025.com, folks. And listen, Brother Corinthian, share those videos, those young people, so we can put them up on the national site. And all of you, if you video your events, share them with us so we can put them up on the national site, and we can keep this good news going and keep this alive. I want to thank Brother Raheem Jenkins from Washington, D.C., Lawrence Ham from Newark, New Jersey, Omawale Satterwhite from East Palo Alto, California, Russell Neal from Ohio, Alon Barrett of New York, Edwin Avin of Baltimore, and Corinthian Kelly from Wichita for joining us here. And folks, celebrate wherever you can, however you can. Look up some of these events in your locale as well. But most of all, long live the spirit of the Million Man March. It has been made plain.